Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Robin Lewis, founder and CEO of the Robin Report. And thanks so much for joining us. We're going to have an exciting session here, and I think you're going to learn a lot. But before we get started, I want to kind of put some context around why I am here with DataWeave. The reason is because they are a new and very welcome collaborative partner of the Robin Report in what we call our Innovators network, for which we seek outstanding tech-driven innovators who we believe are best in class in their particular space. It's also part of our overriding mission to provide thought leadership to, we think, help elevate the industry. And I know that sounds a little altruistic, but in fact, that's what we strive to do, along with hopefully exposing them to innovative new solutions and opportunities. So I am very pleased to be a presenter along with Krish Thyagarajan, the president and CEO of DataWeave. Hi, Krish. I'm glad you're joining us. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Hi, Robin. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to have you. And by the way, Krish came into that position with 30 plus years in leadership roles around the world for such giants as Dell, Quest Software, and Microsoft. Need I say more? So his skill base ranges across all operational and business strategy functions. So our viewers, I think, are going to be in for what I believe to be a very instructive session. In fact, it is for me as well. So, okay, I'm going to start with a macro view of the industry and how it was flipped on its head, totally transformed with the onset of the internet and the technology age we are now in. I'm going to start with this to provide some context for the more specific importance of DataWeave and what they provide in the overall ecosystem. So I'm going to exaggerate a little bit in giving you this macro view, and I'm going to do that just to clarify major points, okay? And I'm going to start off by using a common opening of fairy tales, if you will. So once upon a time, before the internet and all things technology, retailing was really, in my view, about guessing. You know, consultants would call it forecasting, but guessing about what consumers wanted or needed months into the future. Then they and their vendors would forecast how much it would be needed, when and where, based on last year's sales. And perhaps some consumer research was done along the way. Then the next step was the sourcing of the production with enough lead time to get to the goods into their warehouses in time to distribute the projected quantities to the various stores. Then they all held their breaths, hoping consumers would come and prove their hunches were either correct or not. Finally, as we all know, over the decades, the bloodbath of promotional craziness. In other words, this was a quote unquote seat of the pants industry, intuition-driven business when merchants were princes or princess, merchants were king, basically. Furthermore, and even more confounding, if they wanted to see what their competitors were doing, they would have to go literally on a store tour to eyeball the competitors' product assortments, brands, pricing, promotions, presentation, marketing, and so forth. And NPD would also provide them with consumer shopping behavior. Anyway, this whole process was so time consuming that by the time analysis was conducted and new strategies were put in place, the market had already moved on, the market had already changed, nullifying much of the competitive advantage that these retailers were expecting to gain. Also, vendor brands selling into those stores have no control over the markdown pricing, the buying cycle, the inventory flow, and even how retailers were, quote unquote, knocking off or copying for their own private brands. Some of their vendor brands, hottest sellers, by the way. Anyway, this ancient build it and they will come model and what enlightened consultants and strategists called a quote unquote push supply chain, kind of pushing stuff into those buildings. And the retail marketplace, again, called forecasting with cross fingers, is not only ancient, in my opinion, and we're seeing it play out right now, is that they will soon be placed into the dustbin of history. Not a pretty picture. So, big data happened, Amazon happened, smartphones happened. And regarding data, a stunning statement was made by the NSA in 2015 that new data equal to the volume of the Library of Congress is being produced every 6 hours. I can't get my mind around that. Unbelievable. And alongside, equally stunning, from giant Cisco, they said 99.5% of data never gets analyzed or used. In other words, we're choking on data and starving for knowledge. Cisco also said that we know how to collect data, but we lack the analytic skills to most efficiently use it. And that's another big reason why we invited DataWeave into our network. Another study to end up in this thought by Snowflake in the Harvard Business Review in 2018 found that companies that make data-driven decisions have the best chance for longevity, kind of a no-brainer. Yet, across industries, they found that only 5% of retail and consumer packaged goods companies are data-driven. That's incredible. So, regarding the smartphone, talk about the igniter in chief. This single piece of sheer genius, in my opinion, on its own, is responsible for flipping ancient retail on its head. Think about this and put in this context. In the old world, the store was in the center and it was physical space, and consumers would go to the store. Now, because of this item, this device, the stores must now go to the consumers. Wherever they are, whenever they want it, and how often. An important note here is it's not just digitally going to the consumer, it's also physically going to them, like Target, for example, in their small neighborhood store strategies. Walmart, small neighborhood stores, and they're rolling these out. Nike is going to be doing it in spades. So it just isn't digital and online, getting to them wherever they are. It is also getting into their neighborhoods closer to them. Anyway, the combination of the internet, data, and all contiguous and offshoot enabling technologies have forever transformed the entire retail ecosystem, transformed into a consumer demand-driven, digitalized, seamlessly integrated value chain from creation to consumption. Essentially, the chain has flipped the ancient push model to a pull process that in its perfect implementation will deliver the precisely personalized item to precisely the right person, precisely where they want it and when they want it, along with the experience they expect it to be wrapped in, so to speak. Now, the operative phrase in this description is in its perfect implementation. For this ancient model to perfectly implement a demand or pull process, they need detail level data that simply was not collectible before the internet and all of the tech around it. And by the way, it's why Amazon was able to scale so rapidly, and indeed, it's the e-commerce model that the ancient brick and mortar world is trying to emulate and accelerate, by the way, to compete and survive in this new world. And by the way, their progress has been burdened and made more complex due to the fact that they have to seamlessly integrate their online and offline brick and mortar businesses. Lastly, it is imperative that they accelerate their online data collection because they are way behind the digital natives, including Amazon. On the other hand, we also see the digital guys, including Amazon, Warby Parker, Rent the Runway, and many others, who realize the necessity to open physical stores, to realize additional marketing and customer acquisition advantages. In fact, the physical and online combination found that when consumers have a choice to shop in either channel, they are spending 3 to 4 times as much as those only having one channel to shop from. So brick and mortar is launching into e-commerce, and e-commerce launching into brick and mortar. However, I must say that the digital natives are launching into the physical world from a much higher tech platform. From day one, they were able to build their model totally around providing a solution to a specific consumer, whether it be, reducing friction points or personalizing the offer or service. And more importantly, from day one, they were able to collect, analyze, and implement strategy on the basis of data. So digital natives moving into the physical world have a huge advantage over brick and mortar guys going online. The other advantage the digital brands have are the tools available to provide transparency to their entire playing field, tracking, controlling, and enhancing their brand throughout its entire journey. And DataWeave does this in spades. And it's also a major reason for us inviting them into our Innovators network. DataWeave is all over this model with all kinds of analytics and solutions, as well as opportunities, such as the protection of the brand, its pricing integrity, assortment analytics, and much more. And I certainly can't get into the weeds on explaining all of this. So I am happily going to turn this over to Krish to get deeper into what this is all about. Go ahead, Krish.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin. That actually was a very lucid representation of what's going on in the retail world and the journey towards the digital existence, if you will, for retailers. I also want to take the opportunity to thank the team at the Robin Report for having DataWeave and me presenting and be part of the webinar today. So thank you. Robin mentioned about this move from an analog to a primary digital world, right? And this process has been going on for the last 10 plus years at a certain cadence. And then came COVID that kind of created a perfect storm environment. Essentially, COVID moved a huge chunk of the business from the traditional offline in-store world to the online world, to the extent that the acceleration by some experts' opinion has been almost 10 years. So all retailers now have to catch up very quickly with 10 years worth of change in a matter of months, if you will. And so we're right in the midst of that transformation. Now, going digital has an implication in every aspect of business, and we could discuss that for several hours. So I'm going to kind of focus on a few critical things today and kind of give you hopefully some kind of an idea how to go about kind of coping with these changes and even thriving in this environment. The few things I'm going to focus on is speed. Speed of everything in the digital world is much, much, much faster than in the traditional in-store retail world. Product life cycles are much shorter. Products go out of shelf very quickly. There are more launches. The second change is in the consumer behavior. In the past, people would walk into the store, look at products, and pick up the one that they wanted. Today, the first thing they do is go and research online, have 4 screens open, compare who offers what, and things like that. So they want better prices, they want wider assortments, they want a friction-free experience getting the product, right? The third thing that's happened is this whole data deluge, if I can use the term, right? There's such a surfeit of data that's coming in that looking for knowledge in that data is very critical. And finally, in my view, the most important thing is competition, and this competitive landscape has changed dramatically. Now, people can sit in some other country, create a product, and sell it online through online retailers in the US. So it's no more retail competition coming from people here, but it's kind of global. So our focus today in my presentation is to kind of primarily focus on the competitive aspects and how to harness data to kind of do well in this landscape. As retailers moved through their digital journey, analytics started gaining more importance. And a lot of the analytics was focused on aggregating data, which are already sitting in silos within retailers, and making sense out of them. Retailers have data in their point of sale system, in the ERP system, in the inventory system, et cetera. And if somebody could kind of bring all those data sets together, help to make better data-driven decisions, that worked, and that worked well. What the shift to online has done is kind of challenge that traditional approach. What has happened is people are putting more and more data out in the public space in their websites. It could be product descriptions, product prices, images, reviews, et cetera, et cetera. So as a result, what has happened is there's a rich repertoire of data that's available in the public domain. It's of course massive, it's very noisy, and it's very hard to use as is. But if there is a technology that can help you kind of aggregate that data, analyze, and start to make decisions, it's going to give you a pretty significant competitive edge. And that's what we call the outside-in perspective. And that's where DataWeave comes in. DataWeave primarily is, we are a digital e-commerce analytics solution that kind of helps retailers, not just omnichannel retailers, pure online retailers, as well as consumer brands and marketplaces, to kind of compete more effectively in the digital landscape. Our goal is to help you increase your top line and bottom line. Everything we do is kind of focused on that. It's a pretty tall claim for a relatively small startup, right? But I will show to you over the next 10 minutes and share some insights on how we go about doing it and some evidence to kind of support this kind of tall claim. We essentially do this by what we call as creating a data-driven flywheel, right? It all starts, there are a few critical elements to driving revenue and profitability in any retail environment. The critical ones are, what kind of products are you carrying, right? Are they in demand? Is that what consumers are looking for? And how well are they represented, right? The second one is the right product has to be sold at the right pricing. And the term right pricing itself is very interesting. I'll talk a little bit about that. And then you have to combine that with the kind of promotional activities retailers do. And the moment you're able to start hitting one of the pegs of this and start to move, everything else moves. Each one of them can yield results, but if you're able to focus on all three, the wheel starts to move and you actually create a virtuous cycle. So that's really how we kind of help you get to that, higher level of revenue, higher level of profitability. So how does this kind of flywheel land in a typical retail environment, right? There are broadly three solution areas, and I'll spend a little bit of time on this slide. The first one is pricing intelligence. If you see historically, and Robin also alluded to that, you look at your historical performance, how you've priced your products at various stages, and you come up and say, okay, this season, let's price it this way, and then you hope it's going to go through. Well, what's happened in the digital age is your pricing alone is not the critical element. It's what your next competitors are pricing it for, right? So our goal with a pricing intelligence solution is to literally tell you where you are in your competitive landscape vis-a-vis other retailers, right? And are you priced at the same level, higher, lower? The purpose of the solution is to kind of get at a SKU level and tell you, where do you have opportunities to actually increase your price without losing your price position? And most of our customers are surprised when we kind of tell them and say, here is a list of SKUs where you can increase your price by 5, 7, 8% because you're way lower than the market. Because for whatever reason, the market has moved on to a different price point, right? Flip side, we also go back and say, here are the SKUs where you're priced so far higher than competition that you're going to, you won't be able to sell because others are going to be selling more. But now, this is critical because this is what your consumers are doing today. They look at multiple sources, especially when they buy higher value products, right? They're looking at multiple sources and saying, who gives me the best deal, right? So our goal is to help you increase prices, drive money to your bottom line, or decrease prices, increase volume, and drive top line, right? And this has been extremely effective. And our customers not only use the solution to just take care of the tactical pricing need, everyday pricing or whatever, but they also use this data and the analysis we provide to see what's the long-term trend on certain categories or subcategories, even certain product types, right? So they drive their pricing strategy as well using the solution. The second area we touch upon is assortment, the kind of products you carry. And here again, the goal for us is to kind of compare what our customers are carrying as assortment in a category or a subcategory level, benchmark that to competition, and say where there are gaps in the assortment, which are the products and categories and subcategories that are doing well in competition that our customers should look to build. The focus is to help find those needles in the haystack, if you will, and use actually data to do that. The third area, which is promotional insights, is where we help our customers direct their promotional dollars in the most effective way possible, right? When our customers are running promotions, there are others also running promotions, right? So let's say you're an apparel retailer and you decide to discount women's jacket by 25% during Thanksgiving, right? And it looks good because historically you've done it and it's done well. Well, it's totally possible that somebody else is offering 35% discount, right? So all your promotional dollars that you use to drive this is not going to yield the kind of results you want because somebody else is outdoing you. Our solution kind of helps you kind of tweak and respond to market changes practically real time so that, when you're promoting, you're making sure nobody else is kind of outflanking you. I can get into a lot more details, but because of paucity of time, I'm going to keep it short here. But essentially, pricing intelligence helps you price smarter. Assortment intelligence helps you build smarter product portfolio and promotional insights really help you focus your promotional dollars in areas where you're going to get the best ROI on that investment. One of the things we do for our customers is help them calculate return on the investment they've made on us, right? At the end of the day, if we say we're going to impact your top line and bottom line, we have to kind of support that claim, right? So we have ROI calculators, and we work with customers to kind of help them figure out what they've gotten out of this, right? So I'm going to share with you kind of 3 case studies in 3 different geographies with 3 different kinds of gains they've gotten. In the first case, this is a retailer in South Africa, and they're probably the largest retailer in Africa, and they saw an incredible increase in volume using our solution stack. And we don't have the permission to kind of share their name, but the universe, as you can imagine, is very small. The second case study is about Adidas in the Latin American market and what kind of sales revenue growth and volume they saw. And then the third case is a huge US fashion retail giant in the Pacific Northwest, and the kind of value they saw using our solution, because it kind of drove a strategy change on their side. I'll get to that. So the South African retailer, as I said, they kind of operate all over Africa. They took a subset of their SKUs. This 9,000 SKUs, not their universe, but these 9,000 SKUs were driving a significant part of their revenue. And they wanted us to, they used our pricing intelligence solution to see how competitive are they across 31 of their competitors. And they were looking and aggregating data every day and kind of analyzing and taking actions. Now, our solutions kind of give them very clear recommendations, as I said before, to increase or decrease prices. They could act upon only 30% of those recommendations because the richness of data, we could give them a lot of recommendations. They chose to act on 30% of it. Just that 30% drove a 579% increase in volume and a 400% increase in revenue. Incredible ROI. They have loved it, and they are now expanding, and they want to cover kind of more ground with it. And this is in a market like Africa, which is still coming up into the digital world, if you will. I mentioned Adidas. We have a formal sign-off from them, so we're doing a case study. We have a published case study. This is the direct-to-consumer arm of Adidas. Now, Adidas is a brand, and retailers are selling their product, but Adidas is one of those brands that's also decided to kind of double down on direct-to-consumer business. So, and they were realizing that pricing was going completely awry in the 3 largest Latin American market in Brazil, Argentina, and Mexico. And they implemented our solution, and the business impact was, the kind of growth and sales volume that they could drive through their DTC channel by kind of watching what others are doing with the product. And again, they acted on a small portion of our recommendations. This is a case study with one of the largest apparel retailers in North America. And for them, the solution is mission critical. Just to give you a sense, we have to aggregate all data between 2 a.m. and process it and give them all the insights and the outputs by 8 a.m. And then that goes and hydrates all their pricing. And there are 8 business groups that are looking and analyzing this data and then making decisions. And for them, we're tracking 800,000 SKUs across 40 different competitors, right? And they have seen a tremendous return on the benefit they're getting out of this. And the most important thing is this has C-level visibility, and they realize that one of their critical competitors in this case is they realize that their overlap with that competitor is so high that they have completely rejigged their strategy competing with that apparel retailer. So not only are we driving tactical everyday response and driving better business results, we are also helping with strategy. right? So I know this has been there's been a paucity of time, and we can get into all kinds of details, but I hope this gives you a flavor of what is it that we as DataWeave can do to kind of start helping you navigate the changes happening in the digital space. And as I mentioned, the speed, the consumer behavior aspect where they compare and contrast with the best providers, the overflow of data and how to harness that data, especially coming from the public space, and then use all these things, all these capabilities to drive more competitiveness. So appreciate your time today, and I hope there are some takeaways for you from this seminar.
Excuse me, I must comment that terrific presentation, and it really clearly gets to the point very quickly, and I think it's something that our C-level people can understand. So Krish, again, a great presentation. I get a couple questions here. You mentioned early on something about this outside in perspective in one of your slides. Can you give us a little more explanation and detail on that particular point?
Sure. Historically, if you see analytics over the last 10 to 15 years, it's been all about bringing in data silos that exist within an organization, within retailers today. For example, there's data residing in the point of sale system, it's in the supply chain system, it's in the inventory system. And analytics is primarily focused on bringing these data islands together, making sense out of it, and then driving data-driven decisions within the organization. And that's kind of worked well and delivered good results. What digital commerce has done is essentially created a rich repertoire of data that is sitting outside the organization's firewalls, if we can use the term. These are data sets sitting in public websites, which are huge, but it's also very complex and noisy. So what DataWeave does is essentially harness that data sitting outside the organization, which has a huge bearing on how businesses gets done, and converting the data to insights that can be then used to make business decisions. So that's the outside-in perspective that we are bringing in, which we believe is now becoming more and more critical to making business decisions within an organization.
Got it. Very clear. So as I also mentioned in a couple of my remarks, historically, in the old world, retailers, if they wanted to track the competition, they would actually have to physically walk the aisles of where their competitors were, eyeball them, so to speak. And so what is so different about it in the digital world?
Good question. I would say there are two fundamental differences, and I would put them as opportunity and capability. So digital commerce has essentially, as I said, put a lot of data in the public domain. So gone are the days when retailers have to walk the aisles and eyeball or take pictures to get data about competition. Now they can sit at their laptop, go and aggregate data from competitors' website, and then analyze. So there's a clear opportunity in the digital world to get very rich data sets from publicly available sources, right? Now, the challenge with that, though, is they are massive, they're very noisy. So that's where the second aspect of capability or investment in capability comes in to kind of harness this data set, right? So if you have the right technology, if you have invested in the right partnerships, that external data set can be really analyzed to look for very detailed trends, very detailed perspectives that informs business decisions internally. So digital commerce is actually enhanced competition, but there's also a huge opportunity to compete more effectively.
Yeah, and a lot of it depends on the skill bases of the people in the organization. which is also another thing that's going on. These legacy retailers and brands have to get up to speed with digital analytics and so forth. So another question I had is, what would be the profile of retailers who can best derive value from what you guys do? In other words, is it better suited to large retailers only, for example?
I've got some really good news there. Digital commerce essentially has democratized data and insights and in a way leveled playing fields, right? A small retailer somewhere in Midwest can now compete very effectively with the larger national level retailers operating in the same space using technologies such as DataWeaves, right? So that's really the good news. And we have demonstrated that. Our largest customer is an apparel retailer, internationally known apparel retailer, and they spend well over $1 million with us every year. And our smallest customer is organic grocery products retailer who operates within a very small geography. Interestingly, both of them are based in the Pacific Northwest. The small retailer spends less than $20,000 with us per annum. So both the organization at the two ends of the spectrum are seeing value with the solution and hence have the ability to kind of harness this technology.
So yeah, I like that idea about leveling the playing field. It also opens the doors to a lot more startups, which is a good thing. So obviously different retailers have different needs for competitive insights. And so how does DataWeave adapt to those varying different needs?
Yeah, this is a very perceptive question and a very critical one. You're right. I mean, different verticals kind of work with different cadence. We try to kind of focus on a few different things, right? One is the adaptability of our tech platforms itself, right? We are not giving a monolithic solution where we say, okay, here's our solution, adapt your business to our solution, right? Our solution is designed in a way that it kind of adapts and changes with the needs of the customer. So that's how we have customers on the who are furniture retailers or apparel retailers, grocery retailers. The platform has the adaptability. The second thing we focus on is flexibility kind of across the board, especially with our business model. So we have customers, a lot of our customers kind of start really small, test out how the solution works. Are they able to consume and make better decisions and get return on their investment and then expand, right? So we have structured our business model in such a way that we can be with them through this journey, supporting them at every stage. And then the third area we are focused on is the way we support organizations, right? Especially with our customer success management team, our CSM team, they are very well positioned, they're very well trained to make sure our customers are deploying our solutions and getting value out of it. So, and the way it gets deployed in the furniture world is very different from the way it gets deployed in the grocery world. And we, our CSM team is very well trained to kind of take care of all those needs. So we try to kind of, the mantra is to adapt to the customer's needs at every stage.
Yeah, so you guys, I can see that this is a very complex and so you're really having to customize your approach for all the different retailers out there. So obviously the digital landscape needs, several different solutions. And, but in terms of, this is a sales pitch, Krish. Why should retailers choose you guys over the other solutions, that your unique selling proposition, so to speak?
Tricky question, and I'll try not to be preachy or salesy. So in fact, let me kind of share with you what our customers have been saying, right? So that we have a customer perspective, right? One of the reasons they end up choosing us is our ability to scale with their requirements, right? As I said, most customers start small, and there are a lot of providers out there who can serve when the needs are for a few hundred or a few thousand SKUs with a few competitors, right? I mean, it's a small universe, if you will. But as their need grows into tens or even hundreds of thousands of SKUs with tens of competitors, there is a whole set of complexity that comes with scale, and there are challenges around reliability. What we've been able to accomplish time and again, and as validated by our customers, is we're able to kind of scale almost seamlessly as their business needs grow, right? And we're able to scale without losing that reliability aspect. Every morning, all our customers need our data and insights so that they can make their decisions and see the value through the day before the next day starts, right? So we've been very, very good with that aspect. The second area is the accuracy that we bring to the table. As I said, when somebody's making a pricing decision, they want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples. In fact, preferably Fuji apples to Fuji apples, right? Because there are so many different kinds of apples. That's the other area where our technology, our data science capabilities has really, really helped us to make sure we're maintaining very high levels of accuracy without losing as we scale, right? And then the third area they've highlighted is just the ease of doing business with us in terms of our engagement model, the quality of support and inputs we provide through our customer success organization, who are only chartered to delight our customers, right? So typically these are three broad themes that kind of come up again and again when our customers talk about us.
So very good. Obviously, a lot of solutions may require things, concepts and processes in areas that you are not as strong in. And so in some of these cases, do you guys partner with other solution providers, given the specific challenge at hand in terms of what you're trying to do?
So we are acutely aware of this, and this is a very perceptive question. We are solving for one aspect of the digital commerce continuum, if you will. And we realize that there are other areas where other solution providers are solving the problem, and all these areas are interconnected. So over the last 18 to 24 months, we've been investing in building critical partnerships so that we can kind of stitch together more compelling solutions, stitch together more compelling performance across different solution providers. And I'll kind of touch upon a couple of examples. We have a partnership with this global leader called Kensho. They are one of the leading ad tech platforms, right? So both retailers and consumer brands use them to drive their promotional spends. And what the partnership has done is our insights are helping Kensho drive better outcomes for their customers on every dollar of promotional spend. Suddenly, the two pieces have really made it better for it's a win-win-win situation. Another set of partners we work are the solution providers, people like Bain or Accenture, Commerce Hub, who are solving different problems for retailers. And we are partnering with all of them, and our insights are helping drive better outcomes as a part of either the consulting engagements or their solution engagements. A third area that is relatively new and we're expanding there is what we call as platform partnerships. These are people who provide the core platforms for e-commerce, and we are like a value-added solution sitting on top. A partnership in that area is with Microsoft. We are a co-sell partner with Microsoft, and we are talking to other platforms as well. So definitely an area of investment for us. And we are in fact adapting ourselves to work with different kinds of partners so that we can deliver better outcome for our common customers.
I got it. So ever since this kind of explosion of the breadth of the technology solutions and opportunities that are out there, and it seems like we're getting more and more every day, and they're, all these startups, but they all have one thing in common, obviously. They have kind of the best and the brightest people and innovators who are creating all of them. So this has raised an issue across the C-suites in every major retailer and brand that I know and I talk to. It raises the issue of whether they should, quote, buy or build. In other words, should they build their own capabilities in-house, or should they hire or buy the startups along with the startup skills, for example? Nike, you know this, I'm sure, they decided to acquire Select, which is an optimization startup. So what is your position on this, and how would you advise these legacy guys in terms of what they should be doing, buying or building?
Extremely strategic point and a very critical question. I have a few inputs here. There's no way there's a silver bullet to say do this or this, but my suggestion would be keep a few things in mind as they make the build versus buy decision, right? As I said, digital commerce has accelerated everything, right? Product life cycles are shorter, markets are changing fast, technology is rolling out even faster. So when they look at a build versus buy, one thing they should keep in mind is the time it takes for them to get to production and value, and two, speed at which they can do it, right? To me, these are very critical factors, and whichever path helps them kind of get to that outcome faster is the way to go, right? Even if it's strategic. Now, so that's one thing, and I'm sure most retailers going to use that. The other one is even if you do everything in-house, because of all these changes, retailers do need partnerships. So I would really suggest invest in a few key solution provider partnerships. Because these partnerships can yield tremendous value because of the change in technology and things like that. And I would even suggest potentially making strategic investments in some of them so that there is a financial stake as well, and both sides are completely committed to each other. And that's already happening. There are a lot of corporate VC funds who are investing in startups, right? The third point I want to kind of highlight is about talent. Talent is hard to find, and it's even harder to retain, right? And the not so good news there is data scientists are still a rare commodity, and almost all of them aspire to work for bleeding edge technology companies, right? Not many hands will go up if you ask them how many of them want to work in a retail company, right? That's kind of the unfortunate reality, and has to be filtered into the decision process. So even if you decide to build, retailers need to give an environment where it feels like a tech company. But my sense is it is going to be a combination, right? Some can be built in-house, and because there's this affordability of time, whereas others have to be bought through good partnerships.
Very interesting. Well, Krish, I'll tell you, I've learned an awful lot having this conversation with you, and I'm sure that our audience is as well. And very impressed with what you're doing. I think you've got a unique position out there.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you. I really appreciate those kind words. I learned a lot today, the way you lucidly laid out the whole landscape. And it was a pleasure talking to you. I really appreciate your time. And I also want to appreciate the rest of the team in the Robin Report for giving us this opportunity. I really enjoyed my conversation, and I hope our audience got some value out of it today. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.